Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Ask Us Anything. Tonight we will be talking about the 3-shape Trios portfolio. We shall be discussing the Trios 3 versus the Trios 4 and the differences between the different variations in scanners. So, to begin with, we can have a look at this timeline of 3-shape innovations since they began. So as you can see here, in 2000, the first 3-shape scanner was created. I do believe it was a desktop scanner, as you can see here in 2000. And then in 2001, 3-shape released its first scanner. So 3-shape actually was an audiology company to begin with. They were interested in scanning sort of prosthesis for hearing, so hearing aids and things of that nature. And that's how they actually started. But very quickly, 3-shape realized that there was a niche market for their scanning technology in the dental market, and the company's never looked back since. Okay, so the reason why I bring this up is to illustrate a point that 3-shape is one of those few companies that is genuinely a trendsetter. It is an innovative giant. So you can see that in 2000, the first scanner was introduced. In 2005, the first dental scanner was introduced. And then since then, it has been a steady cadence of different technology that's been released. So in terms of intraoral scanners, the first one was released in about 2011. And then the Trios 2, which is this scanner right here, was released shortly afterwards in 2013. So not so long after that, they actually then once again released their third variation in the Trios scanner with the 3-shape Trios 3 here. And then not too long after that, they released the Trios, the Trios 3 wireless scanner, which is right here. Now, since then, of course, last year in 2019, they released the Trios 4 scanner. And that's something we're going to be talking about today. The major differences between the 3-shape Trios 3 and the Trios 4 scanners. So in this slide, you can see essentially all of 3-shape's clinical portfolio. Okay, so you have the intraoral scanners on your left-hand side, and then the sort of clinical setups that you can look into. So you can have a clinical setup by which you can pair any of these Trios scanners with the Move Plus. So what the Move Plus is an articulating arm with a 15.3-inch touchscreen, where you can then place your intraoral scanner right next to the touchscreen. This box that you see here, or this little square shape, is actually your computer. It is the high-powered computer that will run your scanning, that crunches all the data to post-process your scan for you. And so this is the latest innovation from 3-shape in regards to inbuilt computer setup. Very, very similar to in this slide, the cart, for example. The cart was the first sort of variation that 3-shape came up with. So there were actually two versions of the cart. There was a wired and a battery cart, and right now actually we are giving out free carts to all Trios purchases at the moment. So yes, if you're interested in a Trios, do let us know. We should be able to provide a free cart for you. But anyway, let's get back to the topic. So the sort of other setup you can do is in a pod version like this. And so this pod is essentially a holder. And for the Trios 4, for example, there is no connectivity directly to the pod. It is essentially just a holder. And then, of course, for your processing unit, you will need a computer of some sort, whether it be a desktop computer or a laptop computer. But you need somewhere to process and capture and send your data to. Moving forward, then you get to the studio apps. The studio apps are an innovation by which 3Shape is actually trying to provide the clinician the ability to have some sort of production facilities in-house. Yeah? So with the Trios Design Studio, for example, it is the companion software that you will have with your Trios if you're looking into chairside restorations. Of course, the chairside restorations can be in, sort of Emax, or it couldn't be in zirconia, it can be in enamic. There's a lot of different variations that you can go with that. But of course, each different type of materials brings with it its own limitations and requirements. But going back to the studio apps, so Trios Design Studio is your chairside companion for chairside restorations, right? It allows you to design and then send it to your milling machine if you're going to be milling your restoration, or send it to your 3D printer if you're going to be perhaps printing a temporary crown or something of that nature. The other studio apps are, of course, Clear Aligner Studio, with the same sort of idea, which is the ability for you to have a clear aligner case that you start on the same day, with production all being in-house, if that's what you would like to do. The latest sort of studio app that 3Shape has launched is the Splint Studio. This was the latest of 5 studio apps that 3Shape launched right here. And it allows you to, of course, produce all sorts of splints and all sorts of other sort of prostheses. Then there is Indirect Bonding Studio. For some of you who may not have heard of indirect bonding, the idea of indirect bonding is essentially printing out almost like a splint or a retainer, but in softer material, whereby also having pouches where brackets should go. So the concept is you would print out, the indirect bonding tray. You would put in brackets that you have sort of planned your orthodontic treatment in the software. So the indirect bonding tray or the software knows exactly where brackets need to be. And so once the tray has been printed, you insert your brackets. Then you can apply light cure to that tray and essentially put it into the patient's mouth. Then light cure with the composite, or light cure the composite rather, and all of a sudden you've actually attached brackets more than one at one go. Most clinicians usually break it down into either 3 or 4 different trays per arch, so it's a bit easier to deal with it in the patient's mouth. And then of course we've all, for the most part, heard about Implant Studio. Implant Studio is the possibility for you to plan in-house in-house implant planning, to then produce a surgical guide from that, so that you can have guided surgery. Now the concept of the studio apps are, of course, to bring some production in-house, but you can also at any stage sort of outsource the stage you're in. So if it's design, you can outsource the design. If you're in production, you can outsource the production. So while it's supposed to give you in-house capabilities, it's not necessary that you have to use in-house capabilities. If you're not interested at all in doing any production in-house and you want to leave that to the laboratory, you can move on and get something like a clinical app. So for example, Orthodontic Planner allows you to plan your ortho cases, whether that be, for clear aligners, standard bracket treatment, whatever it may be, you should be able to plan it in Ortho Planner. And then once you finish planning, send off to the lab if you need any sort of device like a indirect bonding tray or anything like that to be produced. And the same goes for the implant planner as well. It allows you to plan your implants, whether it be all on 4, all on 6, just single units, all in-house. Then if you're interested in producing a surgical guide, you can then send the case off to the laboratory, where they will be able to 3D print your surgical guide for you. Okay, so those are studio apps and clinical apps. Now, probably the section that is sort of most interesting and most pertinent to us today is going to be the excitement apps and the other software features, i.e. patient-specific motion. Okay, so moving forward, let's go back to the basics. What is 3D color scan? What is 3D color scanning? Okay, So I'm going to play a little video here that will sort of show you what the trios is all about. Yeah. So as you can see here, not too sure which trios this is, but it shouldn't really matter. This is trios in action. What you see on the bottom right hand side, this small window, is actually the window you should be looking at if you're looking at the screen to sort of ascertain where you should be scanning, because this is your absolute direct live view. What you see on the main window, for example, is slightly processed, so slightly lagged imaging. So if we just go back to the video a second. Okay, so once again, so here you should be capturing in full color, right? As you can see here, which actually allows you to take, shade measurement, allows you to basically show your patient all of their teeth in crystal clarity after you've actually post-processed the scan. All right, moving forward. So what does that actually entail? Well, let's see. You have the capability of color matching and digital consistency with the Trios software. Okay, so what does the Trios do? Every second it's capturing thousands upon thousands of images. Okay, once you've actually done your scans, there is actually a final step that you do, which is post-processing. This essentially passes and compresses all of that data that you've captured into a really nice scan, nice STL, nice impression that you can see. It'll remove all sorts of errors and sort of issues such as like small bits of data that you might have missed. It will go ahead and sort of estimate what that area should be, for example. Okay, so of course you have some information here, which is, create high quality digital impressions in lifelike colors, and of course manage precision, because the Trios is incredibly consistent. You could scan the same patient a few times, and then you could take all of those scans and superimpose them on each other, and the variation should be very, very low. Of course there will be some variation because it's an in situ situation where you have a saliva at play, you have soft tissue at play, so there will definitely be some subtle differences between a rescan immediately after you do a scan of the same patient, but it's within tolerances. So something I'd like to point out to here is that for many Trios users right now that may not have updated their Trios software, I strongly encourage you to do so, because there was a massive update that was released in October of this year, Trios software 20.1.2, which essentially what 3Shape has done is they've re-examined their algorithms and they've made them quite a bit more accurate, or quite a bit more, how do you explain this? The way the algorithms actually analyze the raw data that they have, they've improved greatly, so that now you have some of the most amazing, crystal clear, aesthetically pleasing even impressions that you can take now. And there's quite a lot of resources online where if you're interested you can compare and contrast before the update and after the update, and you'll be able to see quite substantially the huge differences. Okay, moving forward. So all of the features I'm showing you so far, these are features that are standard across the Trios line. So whether it's Trios 3 Basic, Trios 3, or Trios 4, all of these features are available in those models. Okay, one of those really, really interesting features is actually AI scanning. AI scanning is essentially the ability for the software to capture images at incredibly high speed. So we're talking the insane speed mode that some of you may have heard of. But at the same time that it's capturing images at this insane speed, the software and the algorithms, with the aid of artificial intelligence, is actually removing soft tissue as quickly as possible, right? So some of you might ask, well, hey, gums is soft tissue, right? In certain senses, but the algorithms are smart enough where they will remove cheek and tongue, but they will keep your gum for you. Okay, so without further talking, let's have a look at what that means. So as you can see here, it's essentially the same scan with the same data, but different sort of algorithms being applied. And so you can see with AI scanning, immediately it removes a lot of the soft tissue. Okay. So what is the main things to take away from all of this, for example? What I can say is there is a lot of clinical evidence available to anybody who's curious, anybody who would be interested to actually look deeper into this, which shows that the 3-shape intraoral scanners, whether it be the basic model or the Trios 3 or the Trios 4, is incredibly accurate, both in sort of quadrant scanning or complete or partial arch scanning. Absolutely. Okay. It is also incredibly accurate for your surgical workflows. So we're talking about, your implant workflows. So here, for example, you can see implant scanning done for scan bodies in the anterior region, which is according to most clinicians, some of the hardest areas to actually place an implant in. But in terms of accuracy to capture these workflows, it is incredibly accurate. And then the last bit that we can talk about, or rather the second to last bit we can talk about, is the edentulous scanning. So Trios 3-shape is one of the few scanners out there, if not the only scanner out there, that can capture a fully edentulous space perfectly, a fully edentulous arch perfectly. It does take some getting used to. It does require some coordination. It also absolutely does require you to understand how the scanner functions, but it is absolutely definitely possible. And we can attest to that because even, I would say, 2.5, 3 years ago almost, we've experimented with our Trios for certain cases at universities where we've actually been able to scan for obturator scanning for patients who've gone through some sort of surgery and have a rather large oral defect in their mouth. And so we've been able to scan for obturators. It's not something 3-shape advises or encourages, but we've definitely experimented, and we can definitely say that it is possible. And so you can definitely say that the Trios intraoral scanner is incredibly accurate. Okay. If anybody is curious for research or just your own reading, and you're curious and you would like to actually have some sort of reference for you to refer to, I can give you the web address www.3shape.com/en/case-studies, and you will find a plethora of primary resources there for you to explore if that is what you'd like to do. Okay, so going back a little bit, back to this screen, what we're going to talk about next is the excitement apps. Okay, and so before let's start talking about them. Okay, so this is Smile Design. This is the Smile Design Excitement app. The concept of the Smile Design Excitement app is to allow your patient to not only imagine, but to see with their own eyes what the potentials are for any treatment that you may have suggested. Whether it's a full arch rehab, whether it's veneers, whether it's crowns. It essentially allows you to propose a treatment to the patient with visuals so that they can really see what the potential could be with this app. So essentially it's the ability for you to excite the patient, hence the excitement app. Allows you to have a really nice interaction with your patient. But it's also important to point out that this is a simulation. So it is important that you are in good communications with your technicians to actually make what you see real, come to life. So, you know, it creates a wow factor, this sort of things. The next sort of patient excitement app we're going to be looking at is the Trios patient monitoring. So this is, I think, one of the neatest and most exciting things about the Trios scanner. It's the ability to actually monitor your patient, really monitor your patient. So previously, if you didn't have digital technology, if you were trying to monitor changes in the patient's mouth, you would be sort of comparing stone models. And stone models, you know, they're not as accurate as digital, of course, but they also don't really capture color. They don't really capture, you know, the very small changes in your mouth, or if they do, you certainly cannot see it. Yeah, and so something like this with the Trios patient monitoring, what it allows you to do is actually the digital tools are the ones doing the measuring and verifying the changes in your mouth and showing you in a visual way so that you can then show to your patient. So it is one of those tools that really does take Trios scanning beyond treatment, because it compares scans. It compares any number of scans. The minimum number of scans it can compare is 2, but the more scans you have, the better, because then you will really be able to monitor your patient very closely. You know, the small changes that you'll be able to monitor in the patient's mouth include things like, so for example, in this situation specifically, what I've posted here is actually an attrition or tooth wear in this patient. So if you look closely, there's quite a bit difference between, you know, initial and comparing it to the second scan, and initial and comparing it to the fourth scan, right? So let me tell you what the situation here is actually. So the case is actually attrition on the posterior teeth, which was inadvertently caused as a result of a change in bite, the patient's bite during prescribed orthodontic treatment. Okay, so with Trios patient monitoring, so I guess the orthodontist was giving patient quite frequent scans, and I do believe this was an aligner case, as you can't see any bracket attachments. But you can see that with the Trios patient monitoring, the doctor was able to very quickly identify that there is, you know, substantial changes going on to this molar right here, and you know, so the doctor was able to take corrective action so as to not cause further attrition on that molar. But these are things that in a traditional analog workflow, you would be hard pressed to detect early enough where the damage is minimal. And over here, actually, if you take a look at this sort of bar here, and of course this is just some bits and bobs taken out of the software, it's a bit more congruent in the software itself. But as you can see here, there's actually a sort of a color map for you to understand how much change has actually taken place in the patient's mouth in the set period of time. So, I mean, you could scan a patient today, and then in a month's time they come back, you can scan them again. And in that month's time, you should still be able to detect some slight changes in the patient's mouth. Okay? Moving forward, we're going to be talking a little bit about treatment simulation. So basically, TTS is Trios treatment simulation, is the concept for you to actually scan a patient's mouth and put it into Trios treatment simulator, which will then move the teeth to what you could say in an ideal smile. Of course, it's a simulation once again, because you have not put in any radiographic information, but as a aid to convince patients to accept treatment, this is pretty fantastic, because you know it shows you on the patient's face, for example, what could potentially be. So just to explain a little bit further, so Trios Treatment Simulator is an excitement app from 3Shape. And then IvoSmile Orthodontics is an app that you from IvoCloud Digital that you have to download onto your iPad, for example. It has subscriptions, so it's something to look into. But basically what you do is you do a treatment simulation, and then you can actually then send it directly to the IvoSmile Orthodontics app, and you will be able to essentially mount the patient's smile onto their face, and so they should be able to see the before and after, as you can see here right now, for example, in this image. But what is very exciting is sort of what else you can do with this. So we live in a world of virtual reality, of augmented reality, and so once you've actually been able to map the patient's face correctly with the teeth that you have designed and created, you can then actually augment it. So here, for example, you have Rune. He's an executive from 3Shape, and so you can see him like mucking about here. You can see him, he's designed his teeth, and then with augmented reality, you can have the patient move from side to side, up and down, and the augmented design teeth will show up on their face. And let me tell you, this has got to be a huge wow factor for any patient who's very much used to taking analog impressions and always worried about going to the dentist. And so just a quick workflow here. So you would scan your patient. You can scan your patient with all Trios models for this. Then you can put it into Treatment Simulator. So in Treatment Simulator, for example, this would be the before, this would be the after, and you have some tools here, for example, that allows you to rotate the teeth, tip the teeth, move it back and forth, extrude, intrude, etc. Then after you've sort of done that, you can then chuck it into the IvoSmile Ortho app and have something like this. So I hope that gets clinicians excited, because it definitely makes me excited, because that's phenomenal technology. And then the sort of in-between patient excitement app is the Trios Patient Specific Motion. This is an app that's not available in all markets yet. It's not available everywhere. But the concept of this app is that it essentially should be replacing a face bow, right? Because traditionally a face bow is what you would sort of use to actually understand the patient's specific movement, like the limits to where they can move their jaws, right? So what patient-specific motion enables doctors is to record the patient's jaw movements. This recording is then, through the Trios software, sent to the lab, which they can then use to actually go ahead and design in-house restorations, taking into account all of this information that they're receiving from the doctor specifically for that patient. Being able to utilize these tools as a technician, allows them to actually create crowns that have crowns or restorations for that matter, for the best design fit available, because it's essentially an articulator, right? Which also saves time in the design step, because it's a virtual articulator. There's no extra steps for you to input what sort of articulator is being used, what the settings on the articulator were. It's just straightforward, bespoke, specific motion for that patient, right? So the concept is, if the patient's in the chair, why not gather as much and all the data necessary to create the perfect restoration, right? This is, I should note, or you should note, that this is a Trios exclusive feature. It's a 3Shape exclusive feature that records the patient's own jaw movement for the lab to deliver a perfect crown. It definitely saves a lot of going back and forth for lateral excursion, for collisions, for sort of on the spot adjustments and things like that. And so what you can see is there are sort of dynamic contact points and static contact points. and all of this information is captured for you and sent to the lab. Okay. The next thing we're going to be touching upon is the exclusive Trios 4 features. So there has to be features, right, in any sort of upgrade or new generation of machine scanners, whatever it may be. There are features that are exclusive. And so for the Trios, let's look at the Trios 4 exclusive features. One of the big ones, I would have to say, is the fluorescence scanning. So it's a 2-in-1 simultaneous scan of both your standard intraoral scanning as well as fluorescence scanning, and it happens at the same time. It's a brilliant feature, I think. So you have, 3D color scan, which is straightforward. It's using visible light, as the Trios is a visible light scanner, for example. It's taking thousands of pictures per a second, as I've mentioned. But then additionally, at the same time, it's actually emitting blue light. That actually allows a fluorescent capture. Its ability for you to actually detect if there's any bacteria buildup, bacteria concentrations, or things of that nature. So let's look a little bit deeper into that. So what does that mean? So what that means is essentially you have, at the same time that you've got your visible light being produced, you've got LEDs producing blue light as well. And then there are multiple captures or multiple sensors within the scanner when it's receiving the input of the scan through its mirrors and things. And so essentially what it does is there's an optical filter that actually filters out fluorescent light. Okay, so basically this is an optical filter. It's just diagrammatic example to show. So the optical filter filters out the fluorescent light, and the 3D image of the tooth only reflects then green or red. So if it's green, you're all clear, there's no bacteria. If there's red, if you're seeing red spots, you're starting to see some deeper red colors, it could be indicative that there is a bacteria buildup there. It could be indicative of a pre-cavity sort of area, or of course it could be indicative that there is actually bacteria and caries there. So this is definitely a pretty amazing feature that the Trios 4 has. The next feature that I'm actually quite excited about is that all Trios 4s ship wired and wireless all in one. So what that means is all of your Trios 4s will come both with batteries, and they will also come with this adapter cord here. So basically the concept is when you need to be flexible, you can be flexible. If there are times when, for example, you have not charged your batteries and your batteries run out, no worries. Just hook up your adapter and you're good to go to continue scanning. Okay, so the ease of use and switching between these two settings is pretty straightforward. It's pretty exciting. Okay, so finally, these are the different Trioses that are available in Malaysia right now, for example. So now the concept would be which Trios suits your needs. Is it the Trios 3 wired? Is it the Trios 3 wireless? Or is it the Trios 4 wired and wireless 2-in-1? So let's talk a little bit about the Trios 3 basic. The Trios 3 basic is 3Shape's, I would say, most fundamental intraoral scanner for scan and send to lab indications. With the Trios 3, clinicians have a way to jump right into digital at a highly competitive price while still retaining the ability to upgrade the basic software to Trios 3 software. So it's still Trios 3 software, but the main differences are, for example, you don't really get you definitely do not get the excitement apps. The excitement apps, some of the features we were talking about earlier. And so don't get me wrong, you know, when it's termed basic, there's pretty much nothing basic about a triage scanner, because it still has absolutely the same functionality in terms of impression taking and scanning for specific indications as any of the other triage scanners. Yeah. And so of course, scan all indications into lab, connect to thousands of labs and manufacturing partners in the triage ecosystem. And this is, I think, a pretty amazing thing. The open way that 3Shape looks about empowering its users to decide exactly what scanning or what lab or what restoration that they would like to be able to scan for. And of course, you know, there is an easy and direct upgrade path for you to go from a Triage 3 Basic to a Triage 3, right? It's a pretty straightforward sort of possibilities. So the things that you can use on a Triage 3 Basic are the implant planner. If you want to add that, you can use the orthodontic planner as well if you want to add that. And of course you can use all of the studio apps as well as an upgrade. You can add those in. But of course, to me, it makes more sense to actually have a Triage 3 and then add these apps, because of course in some situations you might actually be able to utilize some of the excitement apps to further help you develop a better fitting or a better sort of clinical results for your patients using some of the studio and clinical apps. Okay. So these are some of the features, I guess. And I've mainly put this slide up so that if anybody's really interested to dig really quite deep into it, you can just have a quick glance at this and understand what's going on. Okay, so you know, you can grow your practice step by step. You can experience the digital world that will make you smile. It definitely makes me smile. And then of course engage your patients with a premium product right there. I think one of the main things to point out about all of this is that you can avoid a lock-in and gain full flexibility. So basically the ability to connect to thousands of labs is a really big thing, I think, because there's a lot of scanners and a lot of softwares and a lot of companies out there that try to lock you into fixed systems. And we here at Bio3D, we absolutely do not believe in that. We believe that if you purchase something, you should have a full right to use it as you please. Okay, so of course some of the other things are like boosting profitability for your business, because it absolutely certainly will boost your profitability if everything has been synced up and synchronized and is being used correctly, of course. All right. I think one of the big ones is also, for a large part, whenever a lot of our users have any issues, if we are not able to help them, whether it be actually physically attending to their location or remote viewing or remote connecting to their software, their setup, we have the ability to actually directly access support with 3Shape, but we can also encourage users to take up 3Shape Academy. 3Shape Academy is actually enrolling yourself into some digital classes that will help you get better at what you're doing. Okay. So then we move on to the Triage 3. So please note that there is a distinct difference between the Triage 3 Basic and the Triage 3. Okay. The Triage 3, for example, is available in wireless and wired units. If you have a basic subscription, you have a basic Triage, it is not available in wireless. That is an important thing to know. Okay. And so of course the Triage 3 has all the capabilities that a Triage 3 Basic scanner will have. And in addition, it also has all the patient excitement apps, which, you know, is pretty fantastic, because that is, I think, the crux of 3Shape. It's the software capabilities, it's the algorithms, it's what the software is able to do with all the data that it's capturing, that really sets 3Shape apart from, I guess, its competitors. Okay. Yeah, so essentially with Trios scanner. Of course, the Trios 3 was also the first and only wireless scanner when it was first released. Of course, now you have the Trios 4. But 3Shape is also the only company that is still producing intraoral scanners that are wireless. There's no other companies that have actually gone that way, or seems to be going that way even. So the concept of the patient excitement apps is, of course, better treatment and case acceptance for the patient, because we live in a world that's very visual now, and so if you have a visual cue, a lot of the times you will find that patients are more willing to accept the treatment that you may be endorsing for them. Okay. And now, of course, over here we have a few additions. Of course, now we have wireless options, allows you to move freely around the room. That's right, if you have a Trios 3 wireless, although that is a wired unit, we'll need to change that. But if you have a wireless unit, of course you have the flexibility of actually moving around your practice and scanning. And I do believe when we first got our Trios 3 wireless, I was actually I was quite keen to test out what the true capabilities of the wireless functionalities are. And so during my deck, one of my decks, I was actually scanning myself 200-300 meters away from where our laptop was, and obviously I couldn't see if I was actually scanning anything, but I was just walking around the room scanning myself. And then when I went back to where we had set up our laptop, I could see that it actually captured a full arch. So it's a mighty impressive feature if you have a need for it. Absolutely. It's not to say that everybody should have a wireless scanner, because there is sort of added work that needs to be done with a wireless scanner. Of course, you've got to make sure that your batteries are fully charged, or your batteries are charging when you're not using it. You have to make sure that the scanner is off when you're not using it, so your batteries aren't running down. But if there is a need, 3Shape has a way for you. Of course, another addition would be all of the patient excitement apps are fully available in any Trios 3 subscription. Yes. Okay. Of course, the next one to look at is the Trios 4. This is 3Shape's complete scanning solution. It is, up till this point, 3Shape's most powerful intraoral scanner to date, and it's the world's first intraoral scanner that actually aids in the detection of surface caries without the need for any additional machines or scanners or anything like that. Okay, so some of the added features of the Trios 4, for example, is that it's got an instant heat tip. So if you're a Trios 3 user right now, whether it be a Trios 3 basic or a Trios 3 wireless, doesn't matter. It does take a little bit of time if you're turning on your scanner from a start for the tip to actually get up to the right sort of body temperature that is useful or that is needed, so that the mirrors don't fog up when you're actually scanning a patient. And that does take a little bit of time. And in the Trios 3, for example, and this is very, I would say, pertinent to the wireless Trios 3 users, a lot of the battery power is actually utilized in making sure that tip gets hot. But if you notice with the Trios 3, the entire tip is being heated, meaning, both the capturing surfaces or on the Trios, so like you could say the cone that's underneath the tip, for example, is being heated, which then actually passes the heat on to the Trios tip itself, and that's how it keeps it heated. And so, as you can imagine, that seems like a pretty inefficient way to actually keep a small tip heated. And so what they've done with the Trios 4 is they've come up with the instant heat technology. Essentially, from 0 to body temperature will take about 3 seconds, and the power or the energy is only being used to heat the tip. not the entire cone. And so, you are looking at substantial energy savings. We're looking at up to 30% additional battery life, which, in combination with insane speed and instantaneous tip heating, you have the potentiality to be scanning 2 to 3 times more patients per battery, which is a huge jump in terms of efficiency, you could say, within that. Of course, the Trios 4 also includes all of the best features of the Trios product line. We have excellent accuracy, you have insane speed, you have realistic lifelike colors, you have shade measurement, as well as AI scan technology for simplified scanning. Okay, now to wrap this Ask Us Anything up here, we have the complete picture for the Trios 4 here. So, the big add-ons would be that save time with smart tip technology, fog-free mirrors, preheated smart tip, which also provides 30% longer battery life, and then preventive care. If you're quite, you could say, if you emphasize making sure that all of your patients that do come in get a scan, you can really start to look into preventative dentistry. Because if you have, let's say, 4 or 5 scans for a patient over a period of 2 years or 2 to 3 years, you will be able to monitor the patient's in situ condition, whether that would be gum health, if the gums are receding, the color of the gums, the color of the teeth, if there's any attrition wear, if there's any actually tooth movement going on, you will be able to monitor that. You'll be able to monitor how quickly that's happening. You'll be able to measure, or you are able to measure those changes happening as well. And then, of course, if you're interested in this, I would highly encourage you to actually explore YouTube and the videos that are available there in regards to 3Shape, because you will find that you can, there are endless possibilities, I would say, with especially with Trios patient monitoring, in my opinion. The ability to prevent, practice preventative dentistry, but also be able to pick up problems quicker than you otherwise would be able to. Okay, so I think with that I can say thank you for watching, thank you for joining us today, thank you for joining me today. I think now we will actually open up the floor, I could say, for questions and answers that anybody may have. And just to get the ball rolling, I'm going to answer a few questions that we have collected over the last few days, few weeks, few months, because we obviously get asked quite a lot of questions. One of those questions is there a trade-in value? I guess you would be referring to third-party scanners. There's definitely a trade-in value. 3Shape does provide a value if you're wanting to trade in a third-party scanner from another company. If you're interested in converting or changing over to a Trios, I do encourage you to contact us. We should be able to provide some sort of a fee or a value, or how much money you will get for your trade-in. I can also say that there is a trade-in value for a Trios 3 if that's what you have right now and you would be interested in trading up or getting some value for a Trios 3 for a Trios 4. Okay. Yes, one question that we get asked quite incessantly is whether the Trios 3 is Invisalign capable. The Trios 3 is Invisalign capable for the Malaysian market. If I'm not mistaken, the only countries, only dental markets where the Trios 3 is not Invisalign capable is the United States, Russia, and I do believe China. I could be mistaken about that, but definitely the United States and Russia. In every other market, Invisalign still accepts Trios 3 scans. Okay. Third question we have is, I am not using 3Shape CAD software. Can my dentist send me his scans or cases? Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, 3Shape is a company that's highly focused on creating open workflows, open systems, so that you're not locked into any particular sort of workflow. You have a lot of options. So in that regards, or in regards to the question, is yes, your dentist should be able to export STL files after they've been post-processed, so can send it directly to you. And of course, you can email, WeTransfer, so all sorts of ways of transferring files. But the short answer is yes. One of the new features that 3Shape actually introduced this year, I do believe, at the beginning of this year, maybe end of last year, was the ability to actually even export .ply files, which is pretty fantastic. So if you're not too sure about what .ply files is, I highly encourage you to Google it, because you will be going down the rabbit hole, and I think you'll be quite fascinated. Another question we have here is, I'm interested in triage. In my opinion, which triage should I go for? The triage 3 or the 4, and why? Well, that's a there are so many variables in order for you to decide whether to go for the triage 3 or the triage 4. If you're Invisalign user and you would definitely like your scanner to be able to send for Invisalign, then of course you would have to go with the triage 3. So triage 4 is not going to be qualified by Align Technologies to send scans. If you are a little bit price constrained, or you want to work within a budget, then of course I would highly encourage you to go with the triage 3. Bio3D at the moment, we also sell refurbished triages, or refurbished triage 3s if you're interested. And so we have a lot of refurbished units available as well. And refurbished units, for all those who aren't aware, they're not refurbished units coming from us as resellers. There are refurbished units that are coming directly from 3Shape themselves, and these units are traded in or sold back to 3Shape, whatever it may be, and all of these units go through the same sort of quality checks as a brand new triages would go. The differences being, of course, that these triages are the outer casing is completely changed, so what you receive is a brand new outer casing. The internals, the circuit boards and everything, all the sensors, everything gets rigorously tested. If there are any issues, they get fixed, and then they're sort of put through the same QC as brand new triages, and only then are they actually available to be sold. What I will say is that any triage has a 1-year factory standard warranty for factory defects, anything of that nature, and the refurbished triages have the same warranty period. So to me, that seems like, wow, okay, same warranty, different casing, much substantially cheaper than a brand new triage. So if you're budget constrained, it's definitely something that you can go for. So that's one way of actually maybe choosing your triage. Of course, if you're one of those tech savvy geeks and you want the best of the best, then of course I would highly encourage the triage 4, simply because of the fluorescence scanning. I think that is phenomenal. The level of preventative care you can provide your patients is bar none, in my opinion. The last question I have here is, do you provide training and support if I buy the scanner from you? Yeah, of course. That's been something we've always promised, because we find that, I suppose one way to think about it is, I want our users to be our customers or our clients now. I also want them to be a customer or our clients 10 years from now. And accordingly, what I can strongly say is, so we do provide support and services, after sales services, and with our training center, BioLearn, right here. Of course, this was all pre-COVID. We were actually running quite frequent courses for all of our products, but as well as trios in terms of refresher training, sort of any new excitement apps and things of that nature that come out. And of course, we're very open to the idea of doing bespoke training if your practice or your group requires a specific training for a specific workflow, whether it be ortho, whether it be for implants, whatever it may be. We're very open to providing a bespoke training experience for you, because we love passing on our knowledge to our users. Okay, some other questions that have come online is, bought our Trios scanner from another company. Can Bio 3D assist us with these new software updates as well as install all these exciting new apps? Yeah, absolutely. What we would require is for you to transfer your license over to us, and then after that we should be ready to update all of your softwares, install any new modules that have come online, and make sure that your Trios is as up to date as possible and ready to go. I think with that, we are absolutely right on the money at a little bit over an hour. I think we are out of questions. All right, I think with that, I can say thank you for joining us. We highly recommend that you ask plenty of questions. If you did not capture this live or watch this live, not a problem. Feel free to message us, contact any of us, and we should be able to help you. Okay? All right. Thank you, and good night, everyone.